This one's for Pat.
Run. Come on, John. Come on. Come on.
Bo throws it. He's got Josh Reynolds there. Reynolds goes up, makes the catch inside the 10. A little razzle-dazzle.
Thomas to the 10. Denver's going on the New England. They win it on the first play of overtime.
Inside the 10. Head first. He dives inside the 5-yard line.
Tebow throws. Complete to Matt Walsh.
Josh, come on. Omaha. There's only one person that carries the ball right here.
Tebow's going to run the goal line, and Denver's got a touchdown.
It's Bailey. Bailey taken off.
Rivers going left, and it's intercepted by Chris Harris. And Manning fires. End zone shot.
This one's for John. Batted up.
Oh, God. Stokely down the sideline.
Elam's kick.
Oh, the line drive. It's got enough distance. It is.
That Raiders kick is good. History is made.
Hello and welcome to the sports show featuring Jay and Nate. That is a brand new intro. We probably won't play it for every episode. It's a little long, but just wanted to show it off. It'll be available on our YouTube channel as soon as I make it unprivate. So there's that. You weren't able to watch it just now, Nate, but you saw it when I first sent it to you, right?
Yeah, it looked pretty good. Well constructed. I mean, honestly, if we wanted to play it every time, we could maybe just shorten it by like half. It'll be pretty good. But
I don't
Yeah.
know how much more I could shorten though. I could just take some clips out, I guess.
yeah, you just take some clips out. But yeah,
Take out some. It's actually very Tebow heavy, and it's not because Tebow's my favorite Broncos quarterback. It's just he had a lot of really good sound bites.
yeah, we could maybe just take a couple of those away, or some of the highlights away, or something. But all
So
good.
anyhow, this is week 2. Oh my gosh, excuse me. I made some salsa right before this, and it was spicy as hell. I tell you what. So anyway,
Love that.
we're gonna try getting a faster episode to you guys. This is our second week of streaming it live. Streaming is kind of fun. I don't have chat open. If there's anyone chatting here, just I don't know. We'll figure it out.
Step by step.
Did you watch the games yesterday?
I watched half of the Bills Jags game, and honestly, I didn't really watch as much of the other game, but saw some of the main highlights with Jaden Daniels, who kind of had a breakout game.
Yeah, I think it's probably pretty early to have this conversation right now. But who do you think? Do you think Jaden Daniels is going to win Rookie of the Year?
Well, I think after last night's performance, he's got to be the front runner. He just made some really crazy passes. I think you sent me a text saying like, "Whoa, crazy, pass by Jaden Daniels" or something like that. So
Yeah, it's game winner.
yeah, so I think right now he's got to be the favorite. I mean, as far as prediction goes, I mean that's tough to say. I still kind of want to go with Bo Nix, to be honest, just because he also had a pretty solid game last game, and Caleb's kind of gone like a little better every game, but
Yeah.
he still hasn't found it yet. Because I can at least say Bo Nix found a little something in his last game. Jaden Daniels clearly found something in his last game, but Caleb hasn't had a game where I was like, okay, this is like a legit. Even the last game where he was like 32 for 50 for 350 yards, it was a bunch of just like extra yards because they were trying to come back and he was just throwing in a bunch. But he still needs to have that one game like a Jaden Daniels game where you're like, okay, he's he's here for the future. So right now, front runner is Jaden Daniels. I'm still gonna say Bo Nix, but we'll see.
I do think it's kind of funny that last week we were talking about how Caleb just needs to play better because his line's doing fine, and he went from like middle of the pack pocket time to second worst. So
Oh, did he? Yeah.
yeah, so the O line definitely weren't doing him any favors. Yeah, I like Jaden Daniels a lot. I'm not. He seems like a more successful Anthony Richardson. I'm sorry, any Colts fans out there,
Not looking great.
but I think for someone like Jaden, where he doesn't have to rely solely on his arm, which he is right now the best in terms of yards of the three quarterbacks, the three rookie quarterbacks. He's got the most yards in the season, so that's got to mean something. But he's also got he's actually got 0 interceptions. It just seems like he has a lot of interceptions, I guess. So he's looking pretty good. I don't know about Bo Nix. He is now, I think, the only starting quarterback without a passing touchdown. Okay, Skylar Thompson also doesn't have one. But
Not to be fair, he didn't play 2 extra games, but Skyler did. But.
yeah, I know people are talking about Jaden Daniels after yesterday's performance. And then last week, people were talking about Marvin Harrison Jr. But I think Malik Neighbors is looking like he might be the best rookie, at least offensive rookie of the year.
Yeah, no, he had a really good game. You're right. Honestly, you could honestly say Neighbors or Marvin Harrison, because Harrison had a great game, like I think 2 games ago, as well. So those two are definitely going to be duking it out. And yeah, for all we know, it might not be a quarterback. It could be one of these wide receivers for offensive rookie of the year. So
Yeah, now
we'll see.
And I'll just end it by saying I think I need to see more than just one really good game from Marvin Harrison Jr. to really consider him as part of the even offensive rookie of the year. Malik Neighbors right now has the second most receptions and 5th most yards out of all receivers. So he's certainly doing something right. He's, up there with Justin Jefferson, Nico Collins, DK Metcalf. So he's unlikely to win just because you don't often see teams who are doing bad win Rookie of the Year. But he is making a pretty good case for himself.
I'd agree. We'll have to see. It's still early.
Speaking of, we should have ended with Jaden Daniels instead of Marvin Harrison Jr. Speaking of quarterback news, Andy Dalton is now the first Carolina Panthers quarterback to throw for I think it was 3 touchdowns or 4 touchdowns since 3 years ago when Andy Dalton did it again for the Carolina. And I think
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I think you and I were talking about Andy Dalton when we were doing our whole spiel about Bryce Young. Were you surprised by this? Out of curiosity.
No, I think I actually said. I mean, I know I didn't do the official picks thing that you sent me, but I'm pretty sure as we were talking about it, I was like, I'm pretty sure I picked the Panthers to beat the Raiders, just because I feel like Bryce Young was just playing so bad that Andy Dalton would basically kind of like, stabilize the ship a little bit, and he did more than that. I mean, he put up 30 plus. Like 3 touchdowns or whatever he had. I don't think he's a star by any means. I think it's going to come down a little bit, but I think he's clearly a better quarterback than Bryce Young is right now, and is definitely the better option.
And he's got something that Bryce Young doesn't really have, which is experience. Excuse me. He's got a lot of experience, and I know that
That's salsa, dude.
Yeah. Well, I'm also just chugging water now to try. Yeah. If you ever come visit, I'll make you some salsa.
Thanks.
But it's not just Andy Dalton, right? Like Hubbard had a pretty good game, 114 yards. But I think the big thing with Dalton that you don't really get with Bryce Young or really any younger quarterback is their experience. They're able to read defenses better. They're able to react better. They know what to expect. Yeah, he's working with the same tools that Bryce Young is working with as well. But I think people kind of forget that Andy Dalton used to be a stud. Like he's fallen off quite a bit since his glory days in the Bengals. And there is an argument to be made that he was never, a top 5 quarterback even in his prime. But you can't take away the fact that he was performing well. He was taking the Bengals to the playoffs. And when he was on the Bengals, I don't necessarily know if the Bengals were ever considered a Super Bowl contender, but they were almost always guaranteed, a playoff run while Dalton was there until his last 2 years, but that's neither here nor there. So I don't think Andy Dalton should be the permanent starter. Honestly, what I would really like, and I know we talked about this last week, is for Dalton to finish out the season and just give Bryce Young time to breathe and just time to get comfortable with the team. But, again, like I said last week, I don't think that's going to happen given how Bryce Young found out he was going to get benched.
Yeah, no, I do think Dalton does finish out the season unless he gets injured, obviously. But I think it's his team now, and we'll see where that takes him. And then, but it definitely makes me think of the Panthers is not just like okay, if with Bryce Young, if I saw the Panthers of the schedule, I'm like okay, automatic win, right? Now with Dalton, I'm like we'll see. I mean, yeah, he's a experienced veteran quarterback, so yeah, I do think they'll finish the season with him. Um, after this season, I mean, unless they make the Super Bowl or something, I mean, I doubt he'll be back as the starter. I don't know what the Panthers are going to do. They have to basically reset yet again, whether it's to get a free agent quarterback, draft somebody else, whatever the case may be. But I personally think, I know you said like give Bryce Young some time to breathe potentially, but I think they're done with him. I mean, I
Yeah, I mean
think
that's
it's tough. It's tough to kind of come back from a benching like this, in my opinion.
especially where they don't even tell him beforehand.
Yeah, no, I think they might even try to trade him. Honestly, my guess would be they try to trade him for a 5th round pick or something like that. See if they can get that, and he can be a backup for some team, and he can kind of go with that kind of journey. But
Where do you think he would go?
I mean, honestly, I mean, I don't, I don't know, throw him down to Miami or something. They need another quarterback there. They're running out of quarterbacks right now, so. Um, But no, other than that, I don't really have a good guess for where he should go. He definitely needs to go somewhere that has a good support system. It can't be anywhere where he's just like the guy to lift, you know, lift all boats kind of thing. Um, that's how it was in Alabama. That's how he was successful over there. But in the NFL, clearly that doesn't work for him, and he's not good enough to overcome all these obstacles. So, not sure where, but they got to figure out something soon.
I actually think he'd be a really good fit for the Raiders. Like I think Gardner Minshew is doing okay. He'll probably finish out the season. I think it's pretty clear that he's not the guy for the Raiders.
Definitely not.
Aiden O'Connell is certainly not the guy. He's been given a lot of chances, relatively a lot, for a back quarterback to succeed in the Raiders, and he's just not been doing well.
Yep.
I could kind of see him maybe going to the Jaguars, and just backing up for Trevor Lawrence, but I don't think that's going to be a good fit for him. The only other team I can maybe see him going to, other than Miami, that you've already mentioned, is potentially Titans or Bengals. Titans because I'm not convinced Will Levis is going to finish out the season, and the Bengals just add a little bit more depth to quarterback. Joe Burrow has a history of getting hurt. There's no way Bryce Young starts over Joe Burrow, and I think going to the Bengals is kind of is going to be the end of his career. But I don't necessarily hate him going to the Bengals. Getting to play a couple of games when Joe Burrow gets hurt. Just build up
Yeah.
his confidence.
Yeah, I mean, I will say I think there is a value for someone like him to just stand behind, one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL, whether it's a Burrow or whoever it is, and just kind of learn for a year because he hasn't really had a chance to do that. I mean, Dalton's been there, but it's been a different kind of dynamic. So, just to be a pure backup somewhere, I think would be actually a good thing for him. I still think he deserves one more chance somewhere.
Maybe
at least
the
as a back.
Patriots.
Yeah, at least I don't know. I don't know about that either. It's not a great situation, but at least as a backup first, maybe, and then maybe if he shows he's taking the things he's learned and roll with it, maybe he can get a starting job, potentially somewhere else. But yeah, as far as the Panthers thing, I think it's done. And you mentioned earlier Trevor Lawrence or the Jaguars with Trevor Lawrence. That was a pretty rough one yesterday. I feel like with him.
Yeah, but I think that's just how the Jaguars are gonna be. Like they had a close game against the Dolphins. I think there are arguments to be made that the Dolphins are not a very good team this year, even with Tua.
Trevor Lawrence has lost 8 games in a row, though. That's crazy for a supposedly star quarterback in the league.
He has, and he's regressing is a problem. And he's not only is he regressing, his team is supposed to be getting better, right? Like they got Christian Kirk, I think this year.
I think they already had him, but regardless, I mean, yeah, he's a good receiver. So
Okay, yeah, they've had Christian Kirk for a while, but yeah, like I understand that Christian Kirk is no Justin Jefferson. I understand Travis Etienne.
Yeah, Etienne
is no Saquon Barkley. Like I get that they're not going to be a good team, but they don't even look like a shadow of the Jaguars team that made it to the playoffs 2 years ago. And then for them to not make it to the playoffs last year, where all they needed was a single win in the last
they were like
3 games.
8-3, right? Yeah.
Is this a problem with Trevor Lawrence, or do you think it's a problem with the coaching staff?
I think it's more of a problem with Trevor Lawrence. There's a thing out there that he's not really like he likes football, but he doesn't love football, kind of thing. He's always had, like different interests. He said he never really watched the NFL when he was younger. Watched college football, was into that, but he sounds like he's a guy that, yeah, he likes it, but he's not like obsessed with it. When you think of like the best quarterbacks ever, Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, you can throw Mahomes in there right now, Aaron Rodgers, whoever, they're like obsessed with like winning and like the fine details and the playbook and they're like just perfectionists in that sense, right? Trevor, just from what like has kind of come out, not that way. He like was trying to learn all that kind of stuff, but it's not to that same degree as some of the best quarterbacks in league history. Not to say that he's just you can't just be comparing to everyone to like the best ever, but when you come out as the first pick, you're the number one quarterback in high school, college. You think you're going to be that in the NFL. It's not translating all the way there as a pro athlete. He's just been good, or not good, just good. He's been great as a high school quarterback and a college quarterback, but sometimes it doesn't mean you're going to be a great pro quarterback, which clearly hasn't been the case. He's shown signs of him being a very good quarterback, but other signs as in losing 8 games in a row, to where you're like scratching your head like what's going on. Another stat that they showed last night too was, I guess since 2021 he's had the most turnovers of any quarterback in the league. Which is like, that's a crazy stat for a supposedly really good quarterback. So I think it's more on Trevor. I'm not saying the coaching staff is like culpable to any of this, like for sure they got to do better too. But Trevor, like you said, he's regressing. He should be improving, and if he's not getting it off from the coaching staff, he needs to do what he needs to do basically, to figure it out and to help his team win.
And I agree with you for the most part. I think Doug Peterson's not doing him any favors. You look at Doug Peterson's successes, when he was on Philly, he had Carson Wentz. I think he might have been the coach for what's his name? Nick something.
Nick Foles?
Nick Foles, yeah. No,
Yeah.
he's had Carson Wentz for most of his.
Well, he used them. Well, he had him when they won the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But I think the bigger issue is Press Taylor. His
Fun
resume's-
name, by the way.
Fun name. Yeah, it's a really good name. Sherwood Press Taylor.
There should be a cornerback called Press Taylor. I wish he was a cornerback, but yeah,
Right.
obviously not. But yeah.
So
Anyway,
I think he's done a lot to hurt Trevor Lawrence as well. Just he was the offensive coordinator for the Eagles when they won the Super Bowl, or at least I don't know if he was the offensive coordinator. He might have just been the quarterback coach. And the quarterbacking play was great in 2020. But then he went to Indy with Carson Wentz again. And even though on paper they looked pretty good, they were only one game away from making it to the playoffs. There were a lot of question marks both about, Carson Wentz and his play and his leadership role. There's a lot of question marks on Jonathan Taylor and not really utilizing him very well. And there's a lot of I think Jonathan Taylor got hurt that year too, unfortunately. But he doesn't really this is the third time I've said this. Jacksonville doesn't really wow me. And I feel like part of that has to be on the play calling. Like, sure, Trevor Lawrence doesn't have the miracle throws that Kyler Murray has. He doesn't have the precision that, Rodgers has. But he should still be able to do something. And he's not really doing anything. And honestly, I think it's probably time for Trevor Lawrence, Doug Peterson, and Press Taylor to be gone.
fired. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just all three of them, they're out.
I think so. I think Trevor still has, a chance to succeed in the NFL. But it's certainly not going to be with this team. And it's a team that doesn't seem like they're all that invested in helping him. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's something to be said that I think, kind of to your point, something that all these great quarterbacks have had, whether it's Patrick Mahomes or Peyton Manning, you can go back to John Elway and, that era of quarterbacking. And it's how they deal with adversity. Trevor Lawrence never had to deal with adversity until he went to the Jaguars. I'm pretty sure the week one loss that he had was the first time Trevor Lawrence ever lost a game that wasn't a playoff game. And so how is he going to recover from that? How is he going to recover from, a disappointing end of last season into a disappointing start to this season? And maybe he finishes out the season. There's not a lot of great quarterbacks out there. Like, maybe you can get Bryce Young. Maybe you can get maybe Mac Jones goes back to his rookie year. But, other than that, what other free agent is out there that's going to do better than Trevor Lawrence?
Yeah, there's not, which is why they just have to they got to figure it out as a group. Because putting in Mac Jones is definitely going to be absolute last resort if it's just like so bad. But just one more thing, or two quick things about Trevor Lawrence before we move on. One, I mean, it's pretty rare to have a quarterback be the best quarterback in high school, college, and in the NFL. The only quarterback that I can think of that being the case is Peyton Manning. And that's it. I mean, all the other greats, Brady, 6th-round pick, Rodgers dropped in the 1st round, was like in JUCO and stuff like that. Big Ben went to Miami of Ohio. Even Mahomes, like I saw him at Tech at like live versus Baylor, but he wasn't like the best quarterback in college necessarily, and he was like the 10th or 12th overall pick or whatever it was. So I mean, the point is it is rare to have someone be just the best in all 3 phases. So it's a lot to live up to, and I think what you said earlier definitely is a strong point that he's never had to face this kind of adversity. It's all been
I
like
would
perfect for him, pretty much.
I would throw Andrew Luck into that.
Andrew Luck, yes, but he wasn't necessarily like the best high school player.
Okay, that's fair. I don't
Um,
know much about his high school career.
yeah, he wasn't like a crazy like 5. He was like I think he was like a 4-star recruit. So he wasn't the best high school player, and he wasn't necessarily the best college player either. I mean, because RG3 won the Heisman that same year, so it's like
Oh shoot, you're right.
yeah.
He didn't
So
win the Heisman.
he didn't even win the Heisman, Brian. So I mean, he was very good, obviously, clearly, but yeah. So I wouldn't put Luck, but yeah, all I can think of, maybe like Elway back in the day. I don't know how he was like in high school and stuff like that, but I know he was obviously a really good college quarterback. He was like number 1. So, but it's super rare. So he's these are expectations that he's trying to, or the expectations he's trying to live up to are super tough. And then the last point about Trevor Lawrence, just saw these stats comparing him to Daniel Jones. I guess since they've been in the league, it's like the same exact stats. Same 64% completion percentage for Daniel Jones, 63% for Trevor Lawrence. They're both around the high 2,000 passing yards a season, like 2502 for Daniel Jones, 2942 for Trevor Lawrence. But like the same career QBR, both at 50, which I know you hate the QBR thing, but it's it's still a thing. They both have, Daniel Jones is 66 touchdowns in his career. Trevor Lawrence is 60, 42 interceptions for Daniel Jones, 40 interceptions for Trevor Lawrence. So just a lot of very similar stats. Oh, and I guess passer rating as well. 85 career passer rating, actual quarterback rating for Daniel Jones, and 84 career passer rating for Trevor Lawrence. So he actually might be a slightly worse quarterback than Daniel Jones. So he has got to figure it out fast. And I think we both. I forgot what you said, but I said that he definitely should not have gotten that kind of extension. And if you said it too, we were clearly right because, yeah, it's not coming to fruition on the field right now.
Which kind of begs the question: Is 4 years enough to correctly evaluate a quarterback?
Well, I mean, 4 years might be, but he hadn't even been like he had only been in, like playing for I think how long 21, 22. And I think after the 23 season, so I guess that had been 3 years is when they did it. Or no, was it before the last season is when they did it, I think, right? Because he started in
I think they
2021.
did it last year.
Okay. Was it last year? Yeah, I think it was like summer.
No, it was this year. It was this year.
Oh, was it? Oh, was it this year?
Yeah.
Oh, dang. Okay. I mean, you would think so. You would think 3 to 4 years would be enough to evaluate a quarterback generally, but and to be fair, he was on the up and up, but things change clearly. So, Jacoby Brissett, do you think he's going to be benched?
I don't think so. Just when the Patriots decided to start Jacoby Brissett this year over whoever they drafted, I can't remember his name.
Drake May.
Yeah, over Drake May. They knew what they were getting themselves into, right? It's a lot like I watched this huge documentary about Cleveland when they had oh shoot, what's his name? The OC for the Bengals.
Johnny Man. Oh.
Hugh Jackman.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But he was basically talking about how there were these quarterbacks that were like clearly drafted to be project quarterbacks. And then Cleveland fumbled and didn't actually turn them into project quarterbacks. They started all of them. And I think that's similar with the Patriots. You don't when you see what Jacoby Brissett is capable of doing when he was on the Colts, which is I think the last time he had a starting job. You don't necessarily think that he's the guy who's going to lead you into the playoffs, much less lead you to the Super Bowl. But he's a pretty safe quarterback. He's thrown 23 career interceptions over 9 years. He's thrown 23 interceptions over 51 started games, 82 total games played. And that's not that bad. He's just not very strong and he's not very fast. He's the kind of quarterback that will not usually lose you games, but he's certainly not going to be the one that wins you games, right? So
yeah,
I think the Patriots knew exactly what they were getting with him. I think if they can get a top 10 pick, but not a top 5 pick, they're perfectly happy with how their season went. You would have to be a very delusional Robert Kraft fan if you thought the New England Patriots was going to look anything close to what they looked like during the Tom Brady era, even the Matt Castle year. So I don't think he gets benched. I don't see him finishing every single game. He got benched this past game even against the Jets, and they let Mac Jones play a little bit, or not Mac Jones, sorry,
Drake May.
Drake. Yeah, and they let Drake May play a little bit, and he did fine for 50% completion rate, 22 yards. I don't see a world where Jacoby Brissett doesn't finish off the season.
Yeah, no, same page. I mean, I think Drake May is too much of a project, so I don't see him really starting this year unless it's at the very end and they want to just see him get some live snaps. So same page. I think it's Jacoby.
So here's a question for you. On the opposite end of the spectrum, do you think Sam Darnold starts next year?
I mean, I don't see why not. And we can talk about what teams are legit, but I'm buying the Vikings juice. I'm kind of just buying all these teams juice per se. I was all over the Saints as well, but yeah, right now I'm like I think Darnold's a guy. I think you just need to get the right OC with to pair it up with to pair up with, which I think Kevin O'Connell as an OC and head coach is a really good offensive coordinator. So yeah, I see him.
And I like Darnold. Me and my weird obsession of USC quarterbacks. Besides Caleb Williams, funnily enough. Yeah, I don't think he's gonna start for the Vikings. I think they just gave up too much for JJ McCarthy. But I think the Vikings can get, obviously we're only 3 games in, but given how Darnold has looked so far this season, and he's not going against chump teams either. The Texans are, Texans are legitimately a Super Bowl contending team. The 49ers, especially last week, were a Super Bowl contending team before all their injuries. And then, they made it look clean against the Giants. And the Giants are looking a little bit better than they started off than, what we initially thought. But, if Darnold's able to keep up this, I don't know, I guess new version of him, I think there's going to be a lot of teams who are going to be interested in having Darnold start. The obvious answer, Panthers, Raiders.
Not the Panthers. He was already on the Panthers. Remember?
Yeah, I mean they might want him back.
Nah. I think this is the perfect fit for him. I don't see why he would want to stay regardless. I think.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he got signed with the understanding that he was going to be the backup.
Right.
So
But things change.
yeah, like your starting quarterback getting hurt during
I mean,
preseason.
because even McCarthy, I mean, he was a good college quarterback, but he won the national championship with it wasn't really because of him. I mean, he played well, but it was that defense, it was the running game. He can be a good quarterback. I'm not saying that he can't be, but if the Vikings go like 12-5, like 12-5 this year or something, um, it's going to be hard to not have him as a week 1 starter next year, no matter what happens with McCarthy, in my opinion.
I mean, I want to agree with you, but that's pretty much what people were saying. I guess the difference is the Vikings were, or Kirk Cousins was on a contract year last year. He also got hurt, which obviously makes it hard to want to keep someone. But like Cousins was doing pretty well for the Vikings too, especially his last 2 years while he was there. So I think I wouldn't be surprised either way. I think I'm leaning more towards Darnold getting traded for, a second round. I don't. If they end 12-5, I think I can see him getting traded for a first round, but at least a second round pick next year. And I think the Vikings would be pretty happy with that. I don't know if the Vikings start off 3-0 with JJ McCarthy as their quarterback, but when you start a rookie quarterback, you're also not necessarily expecting them to play perfectly. At least not, not their first 3 games. So
Yeah.
it is kind
Okay.
of cool seeing Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold both just kind of bloom into these quarterbacks that people thought they were going to be their rookie years.
Right.
It it kind of goes to show much kind of like what we were talking about with Trevor Lawrence, how important the coaching staff is in
And how
regards.
crappy and how crappy the Jets and the Browns are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we had Gardner Minshew on the list. I think the Raiders probably have more issues than just Gardner Minshew, and I think he's fine.
But he doesn't really move the needle. Like they got to get somebody else.
Yeah, I think Minshew.
Gardner is the quarterback you throw in when you don't know who to put in a quarterback. You're just like, I don't know what to do. Let's put in Gardner.
Yeah, I think in terms of a backup quarterback, you can't ask for a quarterback much better than Gardner Minshew. As a starting quarterback, I think you would want him to do a little bit more than what he's been doing. There is still the fact that he hasn't actually finished, or he hasn't actually played a full season in the NFL, despite being drafted in 2019. But I would rather have Gardner Minshew than Mac Jones. Than oh man, I can't even think of a lot of backup quarterbacks. I was trying to think of the Miami quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, with
Skylar
Skylar
Thompson.
Thompson. I mean, Jacoby Brissett's technically a backup, even though he's starting right now. But yeah, I don't know. I would agree, but that's the problem. He's the starting quarterback, not a backup. So they gotta find somebody else over there.
Yeah,
He'll finish out the season, I think, because it's either going to be him or Aiden O'Connell. Like it's just pick your poison. But after this season, they're gonna have to find somebody else.
and I'm not convinced that Aiden O'Connell is the guy either.
Oh no, he's not. He's probably not even as good as Gardner Minshew, in my opinion. So
He had pretty impressive stats last year though. 2,000 yards over 10 games. That's not bad.
it's all right. Yeah.
It's respectable. I mean, it's definitely somewhere between like 8th best to like 16th best in terms of just stats. I just don't think Aiden O'Connell is going to be the guy that is Aiden O'Connell the person that you think is going to take you to KC and win, or take you to
No.
the Chargers when they're firing all cylinders. Even the Bills or Miami from last year, and I don't think he is, to be completely honest.
No, none of the quarterbacks on the Raiders make me think they're going to go to any stadium and win, which makes the win against the Ravens that much more damning. But
Or the Ravens that much worse.
yeah.
Which I think kind of segues us pretty well into overhyped and underhyped team. If you think back to week 1 of this year, there are 2 teams that I said I didn't think were very good. One of them I was more vocal about than the other. I was more critical of the Eagles than I was of the Ravens. But I've been saying since last year that I don't think the Ravens are that good of a team. And I think, funnily enough, a lot of the reasons why I thought that are not really that pertinent now. Lamar Jackson is, I guess he stopped throwing as much. But at one point he was top 3 thrower in terms of like throwing. He still has a lot of yards, but in my opinion, Lamar Jackson yards are really similar to Kyler Murray yards of just throw the ball down as far as you can and see what sticks.
Wait, come on. Kyler's actually a pretty good thrower of the football, though.
And so is Lamar. Like, I'm not saying that they're
really.
Lamar has
Lamar-
had multiple
Lamar's-
4,000 plus seasons of
Lamar's
passing.
fine, but like he's not like it's all just like scramble drills with him. I feel
No, I
like.
guess he hasn't had any 4,000 yet. I thought he had 2.
I thought he had one actually, to be fair. But I'm not saying Lamar can't pass, but I guess I'm also kind of saying that like he misses like open receivers all the time. The only ball he can throw consistently well are like deep balls. That's
But
it.
I would argue that that's the same as Kyler Murray.
No, Kyler can do like his baseball stuff. Like he can do like his sidearm stuff.
He's like Pat
scramble
Mahomes.
honestly, like from the pocket. Kyler is more like Pat in regards to what he can do with the ball than Lamar. Lamar is just like, I'm not gonna trust Lamar in the fourth quarter down 7 to drive up the field passing the football. Sorry.
I mean, I don't know if I trust Kyler either.
Well, yeah, I'm not saying Kyler has done it either. He hasn't really done it in the past. I'm just talking about passing the football. Kyler's a better thrower of the football, 100%.
Statistics would disagree with you.
I'm just talking like eye tests, like like timing passes and even just how the football looks. It's Kyler Murray. It's a beautiful, beautiful looking football.
I think, we're talking about overhyped and underhyped, and I didn't have the Cardinals on my list of teams to talk about. But I think Kyler's a little overrated.
I don't know what to make of that. The Cardinals. I was on the train. Not gonna lie, but that was a tough game against the Lions. To be fair.
Oh, I do have the Cardinals as my overrated team. Spoilers, they're
Okay.
one of my teams that I have as overrated. But yeah, I think
yeah.
I was pretty critical of the Ravens earlier in the season and late into last season. A lot of that falling on Lamar Jackson. I think Derrick Henry has been proving me wrong in terms of I didn't think he was going to do much this year. He's looking pretty good.
He had a slow start, but yeah, he's looked better the last couple of games.
He's got 281 yards already, which is good for 5th most, behind Alvin Kamara, which had that freak game not last week, I guess 2 weeks ago. And then Saquon, who I'm ready to eat my words. Saquon is really good, and I'm really hopeful that he'll finish out the season. I still don't think Saquon's enough to fix all the issues with Philadelphia. Hint, hint. all the issues with Philadelphia rhymes with Iriani. But yeah, I think the Raiders win over the Ravens doesn't look as impressive last week in context of of Ravens don't look good this year. They were one mistake away from losing to the Cowboys. I think the Cowboys are just not a very well-coached team right now. Rip Mike McCarthy. And it was a really close game, but it was a really close game that shouldn't have been. It was 21-6 at the half, and they only scored one more touchdown. And then their defense allowed 19 points in the fourth quarter, including a recovered onside kick. And the Ravens also had some pretty bad play calling that game as well. But I'm not sold on the Ravens. I just don't think that I don't think the Ravens are overrated, because I'm pretty sure if I were to look up right now power rankings of NFL teams, the Ravens would not be anywhere near the top 16. I mean,
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, maybe just on the fringe, but yeah.
Whoops. What the heck? Ravens. Okay, so they're still considered top 8, or top 10. They're ranked 8.
Oh,
At
what?
least on NFL, but
Screw that. That's not accurate. They win one game and then all of a sudden they're the top 10.
well, they were apparently 9th last week.
What? Yeah, that's kind of a BS ranking.
Here's an aggregate. Okay, so their average rank is 10th.
I mean, I would agree with you. I think they're closer to like 15, 16 personally, but whatever.
Yeah. So I guess, yeah, I would still have the Ravens as an overrated team. But before we go into the list of overrated, underrated teams, I do want to talk a little bit about the Saints game. That was, fairly uncharacteristic, I think, from what we've seen from the Saints at least. Just Carr couldn't really do much. He threw 14 for 25, 142 yards. He got, I think, his first interception of the year. Excuse me. Alvin Kamara couldn't really do anything with only 87 yards over 26 carries, which is a lot of carries, by the way. Not to say that the Eagles really were able to do much either. They scored all 15 of their points in the fourth quarter, and I'm pretty sure. Okay, they were both on touchdowns. One of them, holy crap, on a 65-yard run by Saquon. That's insane. As a reminder to you guys, and I guess maybe to you, Nate, I didn't really get to watch a lot of football this past weekend. I went to a chili festival, hence making chili and salsa. But, yes, Saquon is a beast. And I think if it wasn't for Saquon, it is very easy to see the Eagles losing this game. But on the opposite end, the Saints only scored 12 points, which is a quarter of what they've been scoring the first 2 weeks. And I think it's not realistic to expect a team to average 40 points a game throughout the entirety of a season. And I will give that the Eagles' defense is probably a little bit tougher than who the Saints had to go against so far, and the Panthers and the Cowboys. But the Cowboys' defense isn't, a bad team. I think a lot of the criticisms you could have about the Cowboys aren't necessarily on their defense, on the defensive side of things. So, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think the Saints are just frauds?
No, I think it's still too early. I'm still on the train. We got to see what happens in the next couple of games. They have the Chiefs in a couple of weeks, and I forget who they have this week. But Falcons. So we'll kind of get a better barometer next couple of games. I do think that Eagles defense is probably the best one they've faced so far, or at least as good as the Cowboys, but probably a little better, or at least against their style of play. But I was surprised it was only 15-12. I thought if they lost, it would have been more of like a, 24-21 or something like that kind of game. The fact that they only managed 12 points after, 240-plus weeks is pretty surprising in my opinion, especially at home. Derek Carr didn't have a great game, kind of came back to earth a little bit. But I still think they're not a fraud yet. I mean, I would still say, let's wait and see how things go. I still like the overall structure of the team. Their OC with Clint Kubiak, I think it's working with Derek Carr right now. So we'll see what kind of adjustments they make and go from there. And props to the Eagles, a team that I think both of you and I don't really have much faith this year to go like really either even make the playoffs or go deep into the playoffs. I think we both have had them off making the playoffs this year. They still got some good personnel, and they pulled off the win against a really hot team. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, and I'm gonna go ahead and say it now. I still have the Eagles as an overrated team. Yes, they are 2-1. Yes, they could very easily be 3-0 if Sirianni didn't call for a throw on third down, if Saquon actually makes that call and ices the game, or if Jalen just takes a sack. Like, yeah, there are a lot of things coming into play. I also think that the Eagles, who coming into the season and even right now are supposed to be the Super Bowl contending team, you can't be having close games against a team like the Falcons. You can't really have close games against a team like the Saints, who, we'll talk later about Super Bowl predictions, but I have the Saints going pretty far into the playoffs. But you gotta be able to put these games away. You can't have Saquon Barkley being the entirety of your offense. And Jalen Hurts had a great game, 29 for 38, 311 yards, 0 touchdowns though. And I think that's kind of going to be the story this year. Is I don't see Jalen Hurts being the guy that's going to win you the games off the back of his arm. He's only got 3 touchdowns this year, 3 throwing touchdowns this year. Freaking Sam Darnold threw more than that in one game, which, did double his touchdown count.
I mean, how Josh Allen threw more than that in one half yesterday.
I was hoping so much that the Buffalo's just gonna.
I'm all in with the Bills too, by the way.
I've been hurt too much by the Bills.
No, I know, me too, but I'm still all in. I'm all in again. They're
So-
different. They're different.
So I think I need to see more from Jalen Hurts. Obviously, he's a starting caliber quarterback. Obviously, he is a top 10 quarterback in the league. But when you're getting out-yarded by Geno Smith, which Geno Smith is third, Jalen Hurts is fourth in terms of yardage. I think it's really showing the weaknesses that Philadelphia has. And I think all these close games that they've been having, all of their games are being decided by a touchdown or less. It's really harkening back to 2022 Vikings, where people thought they were a really good team, but all of their games were decided by 7 points or less. And I think that at some point that's going to fail. And the Eagles don't necessarily have a very easy season, right? They're going against the Buccaneers. And then they have some easy games: the Browns, the Giants, and the Bengals, Jaguars. But they have the Cowboys. They have the Commanders, who look pretty good. The Ravens, the Rams. They don't really have a schedule where they can afford to just lose games like the games against Falcons, games that they should be winning. And they haven't really they haven't really been impressing me in terms of beating the teams that they should be beating. So I think their most impressive game was their Week 1 game against Green Bay. And then ever since, they've kind of just been relying on the back of Saquon Barkley. Which, I mean, if you have Saquon Barkley and he's playing the way he's playing, there's nothing wrong with relying on him. I'm just not convinced that Jalen Hurts is doing enough that that's going to be a good long-term solution, especially given that Saquon has yet to finish a season in the NFL. He might finish his rookie season, actually. I don't remember. Let's see. Yeah, he finished his rookie season, and he finished his 2022 season.
Yeah, Saquon's just more of a explosive back. He's not really like every down back, in my opinion, just getting you 4 or 5 yards. Like, he's more of a back that's like, I'll get you 0 yards, 1 yard, 3 yards, 5 yards, 1 yard, 1 yard, 1. It'll pop off for 60. That's kind of more of the back that Saquon is, in my opinion. But yeah, so I agreed with the Eagles. We'll kind of see what happens with them. A lot of talent there, but can they get it all together? Not sure. What about the Steelers? Oh, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say that the Eagles probably have, pound for pound, probably one of the most stacked teams in the NFL.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, both sides of the football, I agree. Yeah, so what about the Steelers? They are 3-0. I did put them as overhyped. But hey, 3-0 is 3-0. What do you think?
I agree. 3-0 is 3-0. They've also scored hold on. Let's do the math here. They have scored just under 20 points a game. I think they're around 17 or 18 points a game. Their defense is spectacular. Okay, they're averaging 17 points a game. Their defense obviously is doing really well. They've only allowed 26 points the entire season, which is better than any other team in the NFL right now. I'm quickly trying to verify that. Yep. But I don't know if Justin Fields is, much in the same criticism that I have of Jalen Hurts and Lamar Jackson. Justin Fields is not the guy that's going to be able to win you games. And while it's nice to have a defense that can make stops, how many first downs does he even have? I can also find this out. Justin Fields has 22 first downs in the NFL, which is 26th. And I think if you're a Broncos fan, although you can't really watch Broncos games too much since you live in Texas, any Broncos fan will tell you that a subpar quarterback and a great defense will only get you so far because your defense is going to get gassed. Yeah, they look great right now. They look spectacular. They're probably the number one defense in the league right now. How long is that going to last if your quarterback is only giving you 22 first downs over the course of 3 games? How realistic is it for you guys to sustain this level of oppression when your quarterback is barely playing the game at all? I can't look up, at least not easily, I can't look up what the time of possession looks like in the Steelers games. Actually, I can't look that up. So the Steelers game this week, time of possession, they won, actually. Week 2 against the Broncos. Actually, I think they won that time of possession too. But the Broncos also don't have that great of a team. But it was close. 35 minutes, 32 minutes. And in week 1, the infamous game where they didn't even score a single touchdown. Dude, I'm just blind. Holy cow. 35 minutes time of possession. So their time of possession is actually not that bad. So maybe the Steelers are more legit than I think they are. I just
Well,
don't see anyone on their team that really screams playmaker on
yeah,
their
I mean
offense.
for me, I mean you could say Pickens or Najee Harris maybe, but I mean for me, I'm still gonna say they're overhyped. It's I mean one, I mean first game, I will say their defense is legit. No matter what, I think that's a defense is it might be the best defense in the NFL. But you still got to have some offense to win, and it's still TBD with that. Justin Fields has looked solid. He's gotten better every game, which is a good sign. But I mean, the first game was against a Kirk Cousins on his first game back from Achilles, surgery basically. Um, that's one. Two was next game was against Bo Nix, you know, his second NFL start as a rookie, and then game three was against half of Justin Herbert, and then second half against Taylor Heineke, who is now the backup for the Chargers. So to be honest, the quarterback play on each side, on the other side, hasn't been all the way there. I mean, the Chargers potentially could have won that game if Herbert played the entire game. Maybe they wouldn't have. I don't know. Who knows? But I would question some of their quarterback matchups. I want to see them go against a legit quarterback first. Like in a good part of the season before I'm ready to say that they're a legit team. I'm trying to see what potential matchup that could be as well. But for now, I don't think they're there yet. They're honestly just like last year's team. Last year's team, even with Kenny Pickett, that defense was phenomenal. It's the same thing. It's just a different quarterback. They're still not scoring that much. That hasn't changed. So, Cowboys Steelers, October 6th. I mean, Prescott, top 12 quarterback. Let's see what happens there. But don't tell me the Steelers are legit when their next three games are going to be against Anthony Richardson, then Dak Prescott, and then Gardner Minshew. I mean, like, I gotta wait till they face a legit quarterback to see where they're at. So we'll see. We'll see. I think the Steelers, they'll probably win against the Colts 50-50, versus the Steelers. Or sorry, versus the Cowboys, and then, they'll probably beat the Raiders as well until they get, to some tougher games later on in the season. But
So
yeah. Yep.
so right now, and I want to talk about the Cowboys and the Bengals in a little bit. But right now, I did the math. Right now, there's 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 5 teams who are 3-0, and 3 teams who are 0-3. So the 3-0 teams are the Bills, Chiefs, Steelers, Seahawks, Vikings, and the 0-3 teams are the Bengals, Titans, and Jaguars. What I want to know is there anyone in those 3-0 teams that you don't think are the top 5 teams? And you've already mentioned the Steelers. But then conversely, is there anyone that's 0-3 right now that you don't think is a bottom 3 team?
Yeah, so I mean, I think as far as the 3-0 teams, so we got the Steelers, not there yet. Obviously, the Chiefs are there. The defending Super Bowl champions. We got the Bills, which I would put as the best team in the league so far this year. So I think they're actually legit on my end as well. And then we also got the Vikings. I'm gonna say they're legit so far. They're not winning just because their offense at defensive pass rush has been legit. So I'll throw in the Vikings as legit. The Seahawks, I still think are legit as well. I think Geno Smith is just super solid. That defense is great. So I think all the 3-0 teams, except the Steelers, are legit. So 4 out of the 5 Steelers are legit. Or sorry, 4 out of the 5 teams that are 3-0 are legit. And then as far as the 0-3 teams, I don't think they're all necessarily the worst teams in the NFL because the Bengals are in there. I think the Bengals still got a shot. I'm still a Joe Burrow guy. It's a slim shot, I'm not gonna lie, but I'm still a Joe Burrow guy, even though they lost yesterday. He had really good numbers. He played a really good game. That defense was just getting crushed by Jay Daniels, but he played a really good game. However, the Jaguars and the Titans are legit 0-3 and will not be making the playoffs. So,
You think the Bengals are going to make the playoffs?
I'm still gonna say yes. I'm still gonna say yes for the Bengals.
I
No, the Jaguars. No, the Titans. And just to reiterate, no for the Steelers as far as being legit, but yes, the Vikings, Bills, Seahawks.
I think I agree with you for the most part, with one small caveat. I don't think the Chiefs are legit. I don't think that they're a top 5 team. If only because when you look at it, and I agree with you on the bottom teams. I don't think the Bengals are a bottom 5 team or a bottom 3 team. You know, the Bengals could very easily be 3-0, 2-1 right now. You know, it took a miracle Jaden Daniels throw to seal off that game in a game that the Bengals looked like they were going to win. There was also the questionable non-pass interference call. So there are a few things going against the Bengals there. They've also had pretty close game. They had a pretty close game against the Chiefs. Again, I think some non-calls really went against the Bengals. And then I don't know what happened to the Patriots game. I'm just gonna chalk that up to a week 1. Like, yeah, they only lost by 6 points. It was not a close 6-point game, in my opinion. But conversely, the Chiefs could very easily be 0-3 right now. They lost to they lost because the guy couldn't tip his toes on the last throw. At least, you know, it was taking it to overtime. Who knows what would have happened then? Chiefs are overtime gods. Then we already talked about the Bengals game, and then Falcons game again was just one bad Kirk Cousins throw or they won because of one bad Kirk Cousins throw. I think the Chiefs are so high up on a lot of these. Are so high up on a lot of these rankings just because they're a legacy team. But this is not the same Chiefs team that we saw 2-3 years ago. And even last year, I think the Chiefs got really lucky winning the Super Bowl. A lot of things kind of ended up going their way. I don't like saying it like that because it feels like I'm saying that they didn't deserve the Super Bowl win. Obviously, they did. But it's not like their season last year wasn't marred in, controversial calls or a lot of missed opportunities from the opposing teams. So I think the Chiefs are probably on my list of overrated teams. So I guess I would say Steelers, Ravens, Eagles, Chiefs as my overrated teams, which is different from the 4 teams that I had listed. Because I have the Jets and Cardinals also listed as overrated. I don't know. What do you think? Who do you think are the most overrated teams in the NFL right now? Let's go with top 3. I'll trim my list down to top 3.
Yeah, I mean, as far as overrated, why the Steelers? Just because of what I said, I don't think they're 3-0, but I don't think they're there yet. Overall, especially offensively. It's hard for me to say. I don't really have too many overrated. I think a lot of teams are properly rated personally, with where they're at. Because I personally think the Chiefs. I think they could easily be 0-3, but the Chiefs are just going all Patriot mode and just winning when they're not supposed to win, kind of thing. But they're still a good team overall, in my opinion. And I already told you what I think about the Vikings. They could easily be overrated, but I think they're legit with that defense as well. That pass rush doing really well. So I don't really have an overrated team other than the Steelers, to be honest. I can't give you 3 that I think are that overrated. I could probably give you underrated.
You are
you know,
cutting out quite a bit, by the way.
Where am I?
Yeah. Yeah, I think for me, the Jets are a little overrated. I need to see a little bit more from their offense. They're only scoring six. They've only scored 7 points so far this season. That's only 2 touchdowns behind the Broncos. The Broncos haven't scored a throwing touchdown all season. Their defense isn't looking as dominant as I was expecting them to. I think the Cardinals are an incredibly overrated team. I think that they're just another Madden team of we're either going to score a bunch or we're not going to know what to do. I've already made my feelings on the Eagles and Ravens pretty clear, but I'll go ahead and say I think the Chiefs are probably the most overrated team right now because they don't have a lot of things going for them. I don't think Travis Kelce hasn't been doing very good. Mahomes has been doing good. I want to hate Mahomes, but I can't really say too much against him. Perrine's not doing very good. And really it's just been Rashee Rice and, to a lesser extent, Xavier Worthy or Juju Smith-Schuster. But I think if you're a Chiefs fan, you should be a little bit concerned, especially because you know that you have a target on your back. And while yes, they're 3-0, and there's something to be said about being 3-0, I'm not completely sold on the Chiefs being the number 1 team in the NFL right now.
Do I sound any better now?
Yeah, you sound way better and way clearer.
Yeah, I think I don't know. It's just random. I guess I don't know. Yeah, like I said, I personally think most teams are fairly rated, which is how their records are. I do think once certain teams get more wins, certain teams get more losses, I'll have a better idea. But I will say from underrated standpoint, I think the Niners. I think even though they're 1-2, I do think they're gonna come back with once all the injured players get back, CMC, Debo, Kittle, they're gonna be right.
If
What's
they
that?
come back.
Yeah, well, sure. Assuming they come back, which I'm gonna assume they do at some point, but assuming they do the next few weeks, several weeks, whatever that is, I think they're gonna be a really good team. Brock Purdy showed last week that he can win games. He didn't win, but he had a really good game. That he can have a really good game without having all those guys. That was his biggest criticism. You have like all these weapons. You got weapons and on weapons, all weapons. That's why you have these numbers. Well, last week he didn't have anyone. He had Ayuk. He has no connect. He had no connection with whatsoever. And then he had Juwan Jennings, who's a really good receiver, good third option. But that's it. So Niners, I'll say they're underrated, and they'll kind of get back to it. If you want, I'll put the Bengals in there. I'll do it. I'm still on the Bengals train. I think they're gonna get it back at some point. Maybe it'll be like the first 0-3 team to start out the year to make the playoffs. That has to be like a stat. I don't think any 0-3 team has started 0-3 and made the playoffs. Maybe not. We'll double check that. But yeah, I don't know. I can't. I said I'm having trouble with this topic. I feel like there's not like this team is like, oh, everyone's like sleeping on them, or everyone's like hyping this team too much yet. I think we got to get a few more wins and losses to kind of figure that out, at least from my perspective.
I think I can agree with that. I also have the benefit of looking at power rankings before, so I kind of see where a lot of teams have, or a lot of people have teams rated. For my money, I think the Falcons are pretty underrated right now. Yes, they are 1-2, and I think that week 1 is going to sit with the Falcons for a long time. But Kirk Cousins got it done against the Eagles week 2, and almost got it done against the Falcons on a slightly shorter week, I guess. I think the Colts are pretty underrated. I don't know. I don't know if I think that the Colts are going to be able to make it to the playoffs, but given how weak the AFC South looks right now, and especially given that the Texans are also off to a slow start, starting 2-1, the Colts are only one game behind. I don't know if I'm ready to say that the Commanders are underrated. Jaden Daniels has had one good game. And then
Yeah.
I am ready to apologize to every single LA fan out there for what I said last week for my sins. I think I agree that the Rams are still a legitimate team.
Yeah.
To be fair, a lot of that was predicated on the fact that the Rams have no team right now. And they were going against another team that also has no team.
Right. The only team that was more decimated than the 49ers were the Rams.
But, there's still the Matthew Stafford factor.
It was Matthew Stafford and like a bunch of neighborhood kids versus the Niners.
Yeah, which, I mean, to be fair, the Niners were also a bunch of neighborhood kids. Plus,
Yeah, but like the elite like neighborhood with like
yeah.
all the kids with like all the rich houses and like the good equipment and shit like that.
And I will say I've been huge on Brock Purdy for over a year now. I think his first year I was ready to write him off. After last year I was pretty on the Purdy train. And then last week just kind of cemented it. I don't know how much more Purdy needed to do to put that game away, but he needed some help that he just wasn't getting. So
Yeah.
I'm not ready to say that the 49ers are underrated yet. The Rams have shown that they can play through all of their injuries. And this is not something that, is foreign to the Rams. They also had a lot of major injuries last year as well and was able to overcome all of that. The 49ers have been a surprisingly healthy team given how much, punishment Christian McCaffrey goes through and Deebo Samuels goes through. Trent Williams isn't getting any younger. And I saw that Nick Bosa was also out.
By the way, Joey Bosa is injured again. That dude is never gonna play full season. Swear to God. And Nick is becoming just like that too. Like both Bosa brothers are fragile as F.
Yeah, but
Nick
Bosa's older, isn't he? No, he's
no,
younger.
Bosa's the younger one. Yeah, I
Holy
mean
shit.
Joey's like 30. I mean, I get it, but I mean that dude could be like a perennial top 5 defensive end, but he just keeps getting injured halfway through. Not even halfway through this season, but yeah. To kind of bounce off this overrated under the top topic to the next topic you had here, at the league is 1 and 2, and from your perspective, I mean, your question was, does this say the teams with a slow start, such as the other 1 and 2 teams and the 0 and 3 teams that we had spoken about? I think first of all, this kind of like, is kind of like to my point about this whole overrated underrated combo. Like most of the teams are just this like 1 and 2 like record where it's like you can't really say anything if you're 1 and 2. You're like you can't really be overrated or underrated. You're just what are you?
You're cutting out
like,
a lot again.
How am I keep cutting out?
I don't know. We'll have to try troubleshooting this.
I think this is why I stopped using this mic. I think there's just issues with it.
I can. I'll talk a little bit more about the overrated underrated thing while you switch microphones. Well, I kind of agree. I think not all 1 and 2s are equal, right? Like we have the 1 and 2 Giants, but I don't think that anyone's gonna say that the 1 and 2 Giants is the same as the 1 and 2 Falcons, or even narrower than that. I don't think that the 1 and 2 Ravens look at all the same as the 1 and 2 Browns. I think there's still a very clear favorite from there. 15 teams are 1 and 2 right now. Three teams are 0 and 3 right now. That's over half the league. But obviously, you can't have 18 teams who are below 50%. of the NFL. And even when you look at, a lot of these power rankings throughout the year, you still have some teams that are 1 and 2 up there.
Is it any better, by the way?
Yeah, I mean, it always starts off better.
Okay, we'll see how long this lasts. Go ahead.
Like the 49ers are, average ranked 9th. The Ravens are average ranked 10th. I think that they're still, and I will say, I guess the bigger thing is that there's a perception, right? The Chiefs have been dominant for so long. There's a perception that they're the number one team. The 3-0 just solidifies that they're a 3-0 team, even though the Chiefs have looked way less dominant in their 3-0 than the Bills. But the Chiefs have looked way more dominant in their 3-0 starts as the Steelers. Take it the other way around now. The Bengals have looked really good as a 0-3 team versus the Jaguars, who don't look like they know how to play football. And even a team that I think a lot of people have as one of the worst teams in the Titans has still played fairly decent football on both sides of the ball. They in both week 1 and week 2, they came a touchdown away from being able to tie the game. And that's coming off the hands of Will Levis throwing horrible picks, the Titans having horrible fumbles. So yeah, I get what you're saying, but the bigger question I was asking with the whole, half the league is 1-2 is to save teams with a slow start. The Bengals are kind of unlucky, right? Because the Bengals are 3 games behind the Steelers. But if you look at like the Titans and the Jaguars, who are 0-3 right now, they're only 2 games behind the Texans. The Colts are only 1 game behind. Same thing when you look at the NFC. There's only 1 game splitting the Commanders and Eagles from the Cowboys and the Giants. So, there's that fun statistic that every single year people talk about how when you're 0-2, you only have like a 13% chance of making it to the playoffs. But I'm wondering how authentic that's going to be this year, given that there are a lot of teams that are 1-2 that started off at 0-2 that could still make it to the playoffs. Again, looking at the Bengals, the Steelers could have very easily lost against the Falcons or against the Broncos. The Chargers game, they maybe could have lost against the Chargers, but stuff with injury always gets kind of hard to see how the play calling would have continued. But there's a very realistic world that the Steelers are 2-1 and the Bengals are 1-2 after having an 0-2 start, where the Bengals could still win the division.
Yeah, and that's kind of. By the way, do I still sound okay?
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I kind of agree with that aspect as well, which is why I'm just saying, like, to answer your question, I do think it will help the teams with like 0-3 starts or other teams with 1-2 starts, because there is that big part of the league, that middle part of the league that's just kind of mediocre right now, and you can go up and down real quick with a win or another loss. So, that's why I still have faith in the Bengals. I think they can go on a roll here and make the playoffs still, even though they are 0-3. I mean, especially because we have 7 slots now, not 6. More room to make it. So I agree. And I think we still need more weeks for the best teams to kind of separate, and have like more like 7-2 teams, 8-2 teams versus, everyone kind of just in the middle, jumbled up. But yeah, I think this will help the teams that are 1-2, 0-3 for sure.
All right, so I'm going to talk a little bit about I'm going to go ahead and talk a little bit more about the early predictions for the AFC, NFC conference games, and then who I think is going to go to the Super Bowl. You were just talking about how we need more weeks to determine who the great teams are and who the good teams are. I agree with you, but I still really like doing these early predictions.
Let's do it.
So I'm going to go ahead and talk about that. While I'm talking about that, though, if you can glance real quickly at the Week 4 matchups and see anything, because that's how I like ending our podcast. So, right now, as it stands, I don't have the 49ers going to the conference game. I need to see them going through their injuries, what I was talking about earlier. And I don't have the Bills going to the conference games because I keep getting disappointed by the Bills. I understand that they make it to the conference games. I think they've made it actually the last 2 or 3 years. But I cannot handle another Chiefs-Bills conference game, and I cannot handle another Bills tragic loss. So for AFC, I have the Texans beating the Chiefs. I still think that the Chiefs are going to go to the conference, although that's less of my belief in the Chiefs and more in my lack of faith in the rest of the AFC. The NFC is where I think it gets a little bit spicier. I have the Saints beating the Lions. Obviously, if the 49ers get back to where they were Week 1 when they were dropping 100 points in a quarter, I'll have the 49ers over the Lions. Regardless of that, I think the NFC is going to win the Super Bowl this year. I said at the beginning of the year that I think if the Chiefs make it to the Super Bowl, it's very highly probable that they win a three-peat. I don't think that they're going to make it to the Super Bowl this year, though. And if I'm being honest, I could see the Texans beating the Bills in the conference game and the Chiefs not even making it to the conference game. But I feel like I have to give respect where it's due. The Chiefs have made it to the last 20 Super Bowls in a row. And that's got to be worth something.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going with the Bills. I'm back on the bandwagon. The Texans haven't really been impressive offensively, actually, the last couple of weeks, I would say. So we'll see how it is, obviously, by the end of the season. But just from what I've seen, I'm going with the Bills. I'm gonna, just roll with that. They actually haven't. I think the Bills actually could have beaten the Chiefs last year if they had played instead of who would they play? Was it like the who did they play again last year? Wait, was it the Bills? For some reason, I was thinking the Bengals again, but that was not last year. But regardless, I like the Bills this year. They're not so Josh Allen reliant. They have a better running game. I like Dalton Kincaid as a really good tight end option. He's able to spread the ball around. He had 4 touchdowns to 4 different receivers yesterday. So the layout of the Bills is much better, and it is laid out in the sense, to be a really formidable team in January and February. So I'm going Bills over Chiefs. And then for the NFC, I also agree could go. NFC is a complete wild card. I feel like for the AFC, there's probably 4 teams you could pick, and 2 of those 4 teams will probably go. But the NFC is a little tougher, especially with the Niners injuries. I'm still going to go with the Niners as a team representing the NFC. We'll go Niners over Saints because I'm the 2 team. I'm still on the Saints bandwagon, so I think they're going to get it together the next couple of weeks and go Niners over Saints. Lions are right there as well, but I'll go Saints for now. And we'll go Bills, Niners, Super Bowl. 2 teams that have not really won. Well, first of all, the Bills have been cursed. They went to 4 straight Super Bowls and lost all of them in the 90s. And then the Niners have been cursed recently, losing the Chiefs in 2 Super Bowls. So, it's going to be a battle of 2 cursed teams with, one in the 90s, one recently. And we'll see who wins there. But that's kind of what I'm thinking.
And I will say, I'm still a Bills fan. And I was talking to my wife the other day about how the Bills are probably my favorite team in the NFL. That's not the Broncos.
I wish we had Josh Allen.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, my favorite team is probably the 49ers, but I feel like I can't say that without sounding like a bandwagoner, even though I've liked them since Alex Smith. But
Okay.
Either way, I like the Bills. If they're not my second favorite team, they're certainly my third.
Yeah.
I will say this though about the Bills. I think a huge issue that they had last year was on Stephon Diggs.
Yep.
And
He gone.
specifically, I think it has to do with his brother, Trayvon. I think is his name.
Yeah.
Trayvon. I'm so sorry you guys heard that. I forgot that I have sound routed this way. Yeah, so I think Trayvon having all those tweets about, oh, why is Josh Allen not looking at, my boy, Dallas would be lucky to have Stephon Diggs. I think a lot of that plays into, the wide receiver or diva narrative. And I think we kind of saw that because the Bills were struggling last year. There's no two ways about it. They went on a 6-game losing streak, including losing to the Broncos. That's embarrassing. But that doesn't really go away even when you make it to the playoffs. And I think the Bills have a lot of talent on their team. They've got Dalton Kincaid, Shakir, and Dawson Knox had pretty good games last year as well. I think James Cook is an underrated running back, if only because the Bills don't properly utilize him. So I do agree. I think that the Bills could very easily make it to the playoffs or make it to the Super Bowl. I just don't want to get hurt again. I also thought it was pretty interesting that neither you nor I had the Vikings making it very deep into the playoffs.
Nah. I mean, let's take it one step at a time. Yeah, I think they'll. I mean, right now, I could see them make the playoffs, but I don't see them making it to the the conference championship game.
Yeah, I think I'm still waiting to be wowed by Sam Darnold. And to be fair, the Texans game did a lot to help me with that. But it really seems like, especially during the 49ers game, that the Vikings just have a really good defense. They've only allowed 30 points this entire season, which is good for second best behind, who else? The Steelers. I do think Sam Darnold is a better quarter. Sam Darnold and the Vikings are a better offense than the Steelers are. But
100%. That's not even close, in my opinion.
I think we'll have to see. I'm also really curious to see because obviously you're not going to bench Justin Fields. But you did just sign Russell Wilson to be your starter, and then he got hurt. So I'd be kind of curious to see if Justin Fields finishes out the season. I think we talked about this last week, and I think you and I both agree that Fields is going to. But we also know that Russell Wilson's not afraid of, pulling an RG3, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. I don't know. I have to just throw Robert under the bus like that, but okay. That's okay. But yeah, I mean, you have a very interesting Super Bowl pick with, I guess, it's Lions Texans.
No, Saints.
Saints Texans. Like, that's a very interesting pick. I mean, if that were to happen, it's like holy crap. But we'll see. We'll see what happens there. Let's finish it off with games that we're kind of looking at for next week.
I think the easy choice is our two of the primetime games. The Bills Ravens is, I think, gonna be pretty exciting. It's a high octane offense versus what is historically a great defense. And then similar story can be said about the Seahawks Lions.
Yeah, I mean, for me, if Herbert plays, I might pick Chiefs Chargers. Classic AFC West matchup. I want to see how Harbaugh does against. I think Harbaugh versus Reed, Herbert versus Mahomes could be a fun matchup. Bills Ravens. I don't know why. It isn't really. I mean, it'll be a fun game, but I just feel like the Bills are gonna just win that game straight up.
I mean, probably because I don't think the Ravens are a good team, but
right. And the Seahawks Lions, I agree, that'll be a good game. But I'm just gonna go back to Old Faithful Broncos Jets. Let's see. Let's see what happens here. I want to see how Aaron does against their defense. I want to see. I think this will give us a better idea where both teams are. Has Bo Nix actually been making these strides, or are we not there yet? Is Aaron's last game against the Patriots, more of a like how real was that? Like, is it just a one game thing, or is he going to be consistent? We'll see. So I'm gonna go Broncos Jets as my main game.
I actually think the game I'm most excited to watch, besides Bronco games, because I just like watching the Broncos when they're good, and I think that they might be good this year.
Might be okay.
Yeah. I'm actually really excited to see the Saints Falcons game. It's a divisional game. It's a pretty classic matchup. How many exciting Matt Ryan versus Drew Brees games have we seen throughout the course of their history? Obviously, that match has been kind of sullied with Jameis Winston and whoever the fuck Falcons get as their quarterback after Matt Ryan retired. They had Marcus Mariota. Do you remember that?
Well, they had Desmond Ritter, and then yeah.
So, in recent history, the Saints Falcons hasn't been a very exciting matchup. But these are both teams coming back from really hard losses. The Saints having their worst game of the season, and not only their worst game, but worst by far. I would not be surprised if the game against the Eagles were the worst game that they actually had all season. And then the Falcons are coming back from back-to-back primetime games, back-to-back Kirk Cousins having to come back from a deficit. I think it's going to be kind of interesting.
Well, let me ask you this. This is actually interesting from this standpoint. Jaguars Texans, classic AFC South matchup. but who actually wins this game? Like, both teams got blown out last week. Who's going to actually win this game?
I don't know if the Jaguars Texans is a classic AFC South matchup.
I know that was tongue in cheek.
I just feel like the Jaguars and Texans have never been good at the same time.
They're like the two newest teams in the NFL, so it's like you can't say it's a classic. I mean, I don't know. I guess for the last 20 years you can say it has been, but anyway, but who wins this game? They both got blown out by like 30 points. Like, who's gonna be like up for this game?
Oh God, I just rubbed chili.
They both
oil
are.
into my eye.
But you just what?
I just rubbed chili oil into my eye. Oh, that's painful. Dude, it doesn't matter how many times I wash my hands when I cut peppers. It's always there.
It's gonna be there. You just gotta wait.
It's the Texans, dude. Like I don't even think it's close. I think this loss against the Vikings was a humbling game for the Texans. And I think that's the game where they go, okay, we have a lot of this talent. We have to actually start utilizing it, right? Because I talked about the Eagles pound for pound being one of the most impressive teams in the NFL. I think the Texans' offense is probably the best offense in the NFL at their peak.
You were talking about being on teams. You were really on the Texans. This is what I've noticed from this podcast. You were like Texans all in.
When Stephon Diggs is debatably your second or third best wide receiver, that's got to be a good look for you, right? Now, obviously, C.J. Stroud has to look good. It doesn't matter how many good wide receivers you have. If your quarterback's not good, then you're not going to look good. But I think Stephon Diggs, Nico Collins, and Tank Dell make a really solid, starting wide receiving core. I think Robert Woods is a very good number 2 receiver, not, I guess, backup receiver, because number 2 receiver means something else. I've liked Cam Akers since he was on the Rams, even though he didn't really do much on the Rams. And Cam Akers isn't even their number 1 running back. They have Joe Mixon, who I think we're seeing very clearly how important Joe Mixon was to the Bengals' success, seeing as how they're 0-3. So, yeah, I like the Texans. which is unfortunate because Matt
I
is a
mean-
huge Colts fan. But I also think just there's a lot of talent on that team, and really it falls on C.J. Stroud to do something with that. I think games like the Vikings loss really show the Texans, okay, there's no such thing as a free win, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I get what you're saying when it comes to that, but I mean, Jaguars got talent too. I mean, they got Christian Kirk, they got Calvin Ridley's on that team, by the way, and Brian Thomas, who's their first round receiver from LSU. He was alongside Malik Neighbors last year as well, and obviously Trevor Lawrence, our generational quarterback there as well, right? So it's like
Calvin
I don't know.
Ridley, by the way, was the wide receiver I was trying to think of earlier.
Oh, okay.
Not Christian Kirk.
Got it. So I feel like with everyone we were saying earlier, everyone's job is on the line basically.
Wait, Calvin Ridley's not on Jacksonville.
Oh, he's not?
No, he's on Tennessee. That's why I was so confused. It was the other way around. Jaguars have gotten worse, not better.
Oh. Thought he was. Oh, you're right. Okay. When did he leave the Jaguars?
Last year. Last year was
Oh,
his
last year. My bad. Okay, he switched teams.
But no,
You're
so
right,
yeah,
Jaguars.
I got it backwards. Earlier when I said the Jaguars were getting better as a better roster, it's because I thought they got Calvin Ridley from someone else, not
God,
the other way around.
Stop moving around, NFL players. Jeez, stick in one spot. Yeah. So, okay, that kind of defeats my point. Then there is less talent overall in the wide receiving core, but yeah, I mean they're playing for their jobs and their livelihoods right here over there in Jacksonville. So we'll see. I mean, I think you're probably right. Texans probably win this at home, but that's going to be a tough spot for the Jags to be 0-4. But I think the Jags have actually played the Texans historically well the last couple of years. I think they have a winning record against the Texans, I believe. So we'll have to see how this goes.
And I will say, I think when your quarterback says we are not a good football team, and your head coach says, "Yeah, we don't know what we're doing. No one is safe, including Trevor Lawrence." That is not what a team says before popping off 45 points and winning a game, right?
Oh yeah, 100%.
They're a team in shambles right now, and they're spiraling. And already, no one has each other's back on the Jaguars. No one believes in themselves on the Jaguars. I think, at least on the Titans, the head coach hates Will Levis. But at least Will Levis still thinks that he's the best quarterback in the NFL, right? He's still out
Yeah.
there making throws that he probably shouldn't be because he still believes in the team. And I think ultimately that's what's going to make the Jaguars, in my opinion, the worst team in the NFL this year. I think they're worse than the Panthers. I think they're worse than the Giants. I think they're worse than the Texans because at least the Panthers have a spark right now with Andy Dalton. We'll see how long that lasts. The Giants have potentially the best rookie in the league. And the Titans have a quarterback who has a huge chip on his shoulder, for better or for worse. The Jaguars don't have anything. They have Christian Kirk.
No, true that. Christian Kirk and Brian Thomas. But look, hey, I'll just leave it at this. Jaguars 2-1 against the Texans the last 3 games. Hey, we'll see.
That is not as impressive of a stat as I thought you were going to tell me.
No, I'm just saying, it's not like they have the upper hand. Actually, if I look back, it's okay. It's actually 2-2 the last 4 games, so it doesn't help that much. But it's not like the Texans have been dominating this series or anything like that.
No.
But yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens there. Do you want to close this out?
Yeah, you guys have been listening to the sports show. I'm still trying to figure out how to do this whole streaming thing. I've never figured out how to do social media. But, I can now tell you guys to like, follow, and subscribe. Maybe not follow. I don't really know how YouTube works. But, yeah, we'll see you next week.